What must an individual do to generate and sustain an identity in the arts? What patterns of actions must be adopted? What is the responsibility of the student of creation? Is it important? Is it vital? Hello, my name is Christopher Caliendo, and I have the privilege of sharing with you this course called Identity Towards Autonomy. This course rests on the premise that all of us have more knowledge than we normally are aware of, more wisdom than we use, more potentials that typically show up in our behavior. Yet with today's demands and kinetic pace conflicting with old institutions and programming, who can blame us, the artists who are swept away in a technological current whose ebb and flow wash us out to sea on a ship with no rudder? Ours is a journey that more than likely started in our childhood. Some of us are blessed with more consciousness, more awareness of that early urge to pick up a musical instrument, or paint on canvas or dance. Some of us were not conscious at all and just followed a procedure provided us by parents and teachers, funneled through an existing institution's notions on what courses were adequate to sustain a long career. Others, those rare few, tap into a consciousness that is so channeled and connected to all the necessary skill sets, both artistic and business-minded, that they become trailblazers. The result of this course comes from studying these superstars to ascertain whether artistic success can be acquired, learned, or taught. The course introduces action-based practices which will increase personal awareness and effectiveness to help build a philosophically pure identity for you, the creative person. It addresses the importance of philosophy in an artist's quest for identity, psychological health, personal achievement, and positive quote from relationships. Follow your own course and let people talk. The statement makes you think or rethink about the value of being an original thinker. It also makes you curious about the long-term effect and efficacy of being original. That your journey into the world, creating your art specific to your personal and moral values and let others react to it purely. That in time, if you are fortunate to pay your fixed and variable costs on your creative, unique self, and not an art form that emulates another or mimics another or succumbs to the trappings of commercialism, this will not only give you the greatest personal value, but an opportunity for your legacy and creative estate to flourish and influence future generations of creative thinkers. Let's face it, being original takes courage, vision, determination, and purpose amongst many other things. Western consumerism and emulation, even the need to be famous, can waylay your purpose from your original vision and goals. Also, the practical need to survive may have changed your focus, even your moral purpose as a creative spirit, distancing you from being able to understand if your actions are in alignment with your creative purpose, and now you are questioning it. So how do you gain your original purpose back? Is that important to do? Does having a daytime corporate job sustaining your financial stability allow you the time to reconsider this, to focus on why you were born into this world as a creative person to begin with? Are there techniques that will allow you to rediscover the root of your unique self, the chassis of your being, the topography of your creative soul? What must an individual do to generate and sustain an identity as a creative person? What patterns of actions must be adopted? What is the responsibility of the creative student? Whether you are a musician, actor, visual artist, designer, writer, poet, entrepreneur, to be able to access your unique insight into developing your identity as an artist, knowing who you are, and having a corresponding action plan to do something about it? We must begin with autonomy, the capacity to decide for oneself and pursue a course of action in one's life. I call it towards autonomy because being a creative person by nature is a transitory experience. Artists are always adapting to changing times and conditions. At least the ones that survive do, because artists and creative types are always in the process of becoming. Their actions are protean, capable of or tending to have to change frequently and or easily. I once had the opportunity to talk with this legendary actor, and I asked him, what themes in childhood have affected you the most in establishing who you are today? And he replied quite quickly, I grew up in China where I learned how to be an acrobat. I watched Buster Keaton in the classic silent film The General and fell in love with film and comedy. And in 1973, I watched Enter the Dragon starring Bruce Lee and was introduced to Kung Fu. At some point, I combined my love for film, acting, comedy, and martial arts and became who I am today. Wow. How can you do this? Can it be learned? Can it be taught? Let me tell you. Hearing this story from Mr. Chan was a transformational moment in my life. Since differentiating yourself is so valuable in the music industry, any industry, can one develop their musical identity by combining themes in childhood that have shown remarkable consistency over time? When I teach musicians how to establish a musical identity, I have open discussions with them on how their artistic vision evolved. What childhood memories do they recollect as being significant to have persuaded their development in music? Were they distinguished in their youth? Were their parents musical mentors? Ultimately, we look back in time and pinpoint those themes to help shape and market their vision as a creative force. Let me give you an example. I was coaching in a local high school music department. I gave the classroom of music students the following exercise: to write down 3 things they are deeply passionate about since they began to learn music. One of the girls asked me, "Christopher, I love playing the piano, specifically 19th century literature, and I love the human mind." I said, "Great. If you combine those themes together, how do you see yourself performing on stage?" And she responded, "I see myself more intimate with my audience, talking to them about what was going on in the composer's mind, and then performing a single movement. In this way, it increases the audience's appreciation of the composer while allowing me to fulfill my passion for the human mind and perform late 19th century romantic piano music." The result, a paradigm shift in thinking, and that resulted in transformation. She began to see how she could separate herself from standard performance practices by incorporating themes she is passionate about. And as you can see, themes can be anything, like cooking. It's applying these themes, our greatest passions, that leads to creating our unique identity. So let me give you a recent example of how I consciously integrated some of my themes to create a unique product and possibly a unique way to enjoy comic books. Now, here are the themes that I wrote on a piece of paper: love of film, love of comic books, love of music. Now, how was I going to integrate those into something new? Well, the result of consciously combining these themes was this. Comic book crusader Billy Tucci and Hollywood composer Christopher Caliendo present to you She, the Film Book. 25 years ago, this female samurai warrior took the industry by storm. Now, for the first time ever, you get to experience She, the Film Book, issue number 1, brought to life with an original musical score by Emmy-nominated composer Christopher Caliendo. Hear Billy Tucci's iconic female warrior brought to new life with a stunning orchestral score filled with authentic Japanese instruments, sound effects, and voice-over artists. This highly anticipated visual and audio experience is now produced and available to you. Relive She, issue number 1, The Way of the Warrior. Click on the link below to access this streaming state-of-the-art event and have She, the Film Book, presented to you. Provided by Intermedia and Crusade Comics. This was my thought process. What are unique ways I can use my love of composing with my love of comic books? After scoring She, I knew I had to sell it. My love of reading comic books resulted in creating my own sheet music publishing company, so why not reach out to book publishers? That triggered the idea of pursuing art book publishers and comic book companies as a base to seek out commissions and clients who see the advantage of having an original score associated with their comics or art books. I used my themes to create something new, knowing that if I focused on the things I love to do, all of which began in childhood, the result would be passionate, committed, exciting, original. For a musical artist, what is the emotional response you want people to have when people hear your name, see your photo, read your blog? The goal is to get as many people to feel the same about you. For example, Yo-Yo Ma. He's warm, luminous, a world ambassador, while Renee Fleming comes across as classy, refined, sophisticated. Branding is cultivated over time, again, and again. So step 1, I would write down a ton of words that you feel describe or represent you. Notice that most of these words will be extensions of your personal themes. These words are unique to your brand. Try to get aligned as possible to the sense of your own story, priorities, and values. If one of your brand points is accessibility and communication, but you don't do masterclasses or social media, that will ring false. If you value tech, but none of your projects leverage new media and tech, people will not believe that. What you do have done, and going to do align with those 2, 3, 4 brand core values. Branding is not compromising the art. The branding is the story that is told about it. Control your story with branding. It's a creative process. Do not think of it as selling out. Start to think about story points, sentences that elucidate what makes you different. Defining traits. There are 2 categories. First are musical points. These are most important, but they often are limited in terms of comprehension or interest to a musical audience. If you are a violinist and you find obscure Baroque composers and you bring them to the light. If you are a cellist focusing on the music of other contemporary composers. If you are a pianist that likes to bring pianos into crazy places. This is a musical story point. Your goal is to list 2 to 4 things that define you as different from other people that do what you do. This process is much easier after you complete your theme exercise. Using myself as an example, I started out as a guitarist, playing the music of my Italian heritage. Fell in love with world music. And today have over 350 works published in different world music collections. Caliendo World Music Publishing provides world music for classical musicians. The theme of world music started in childhood, is a reflection of the instrument I chose for my profession, my recitals, my guitar endorsement, my sheet music company, my pedagogy, all reflect my story started from childhood.